Boom. That was it.
I
Okay.
know. I was expecting more, but okay.
Yeah. So was I. But you know,
But we're giving more to our viewers and listeners. That's where the more is coming in.
that's where that is definitely where the more is coming in. And
Yeah.
welcome back to the Trippin Thompsons podcast. This is episode number 14.
14.
So, you know, we are glad to have you. And I'm Victor, one of the co hosts.
And I'm Brickell, the other co-host.
So, we're stepping into, different topics. And, for a lot of what we've been doing over the course of our shows has been, looking at different things around leadership, business, life, adventure. And today we're going to just focus in on popular or questions that leaders get asked or could get asked, and just give our viewpoints on those questions. But before we do, don't forget to, follow us on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. Uh, also like us. We really want you to like us. So like us, like
Yes.
yeah,
And subscribe and
and
share.
subscribe, yeah, and so, what are your thoughts in general about tackling this topic around leadership?
Well, tackling is probably a great word for it because it is such a big topic and
Mm-hmm.
many dimensions, many layers to it. It's ever evolving and changing, and it's not a one size fits all. And it also isn't a destination point. You don't arrive. You don't get the gold medal. Yay, you've made it. So I think we have a lot to discuss. So I'm pretty excited about this episode.
Yes, you could discuss for a long time. I mean, in I was in a meeting today, and I was asked, "What is your leadership style?" And I think that's kind of at the crux or the nexus of a lot of these questions, is that depending upon your leadership style, you may have different ways of answering or discussing this. And I don't think we have exactly the same leadership style. So,
Mm-mm,
you might get different opinions and different viewpoints
for
from
sure.
us on this one. So,
Yeah.
um, but in that regard, one question that comes up for me is, what are the most important decisions that you make as a leader? So, I mean, from your past experiences and your observations, right? I mean, we've also not only are we both or have been in leadership roles, but we also work with leaders, surround ourselves with leaders, coach leaders, etc. So, I mean, what are some of the most important decisions that you make as a leader?
Hmm. Way to come out of the gate with a really big question. So we haven't rehearsed any of this at all as far as responses. So this is on the spot. Biggest decisions you make as a leader, it's a it's a balance of making the best decision for the business and making the best decision for those that are in the business, all employees. And when I think about best decision for the business, that includes all the stakeholders attached to it.
Mm-hmm.
So customers, patients, etc., the community that might be impacted by the business. And then internally, everyone that is receiving benefit or value and a paycheck from the organization. And sometimes you have to make the best decision for the business, which isn't always the best decision for the people that are within the business. And there could be impact. People might need to take on a different role or responsibility. Might mean people need to elevate into a position they weren't quite ready to take on yet in order to satisfy those needs. It could also mean that there could be impact that I think we're seeing across multiple industries right now, where there's shifts in downsizing and people being released from their job. But it's also important to recognize that as much as we want to attend to the employee experience and take care of people, no matter what happens, that there's a very respectful and honorable way to be able to help resource people for that journey. There are companies that maybe overcorrect in wanting to make sure that the employee is well taken care of, and do that in spite of the business's needs. And that can have some detriment. That can play into different spaces. Typically, you're not going to see that happen as much in publicly traded companies, because the street is kind of dictating what the performance measures need to be. So you might find this in nonprofits or family-run businesses or smaller type of operations, which could mean that the business might take longer to achieve its potential, or the business might not be able to do certain things, or even maybe have a downturn when it's overcorrected to appeasing more, to making sure that all employees are taken care of. How would you answer the question?
Well, I mean, I agree with a lot of what you said. I do think that leaders have multiple responsibilities. And so, when they're making decisions, they need to take all the different parties into account. And that means that the most important decisions that I believe we make as leaders are the ones that have lasting impact or have enduring impact. And so when we're making, longer term impactful decisions, they're going to carry more weight longer time. So there are lots of stakeholders and things like that involved. And how do we align ourselves to creating thoughtful and reflective decisions that take into account all the components of the business? And then I would add that how it's communicated becomes very key to how it's perceived. And that would include all stakeholders, whether it's, as you brought up before, whether that's, investors or customers or employees or, peers and leadership. How you communicate decision making is going to impact how people perceive it.
Yeah, there's a lot of drill downs we could do beyond the decision made itself, and how to manage it once the decision has been made. And that's where, when we're opening, I was saying it's so multi-layered. There's so much nuance to this that it's not just a simple straight answer. Well, how about we go on to the next question? Where do great ideas come from in an organization?
Okay, so you said that, the first question was a broad question. I mean, this one is too.
They probably all are.
They all are, because that's part of leadership. I think is broad, right? You don't make leadership in a vacuum. For instance, a lot of times there are functional leaders in an organization. However, one functional leader's decision has an impact on multiple other functional areas as well. So it's not like you make decisions as a leader in a vacuum. So where do great ideas come from? Part of what I'd say is they come from everywhere. But you have to be looking and listening for them. And that means that you are talking to all the stakeholders in an organization, not just like shutting the door and trying to think amongst yourself. Depending upon the size of an organization, leadership can be uh, further removed from the day-to-day aspects of what's really happening. And so great ideas, I would say more frequently than not, kind of start at the ground floor level because there's something going on, right? There's something that someone is experiencing either positively or you know, not so positively, that says, hey, we have an opportunity or we have an obstacle, and how do we deal with that? How do we address that? Which then leads to you know, great ideas because people are thinking. I mean, that's one response to it. What would you say?
Yeah, I agree that I think it can happen organically within the organization and really, provide a culture where um, I think sharing of ideas and coming forward with thoughts is important. So with that, you need psychological safety. People need to feel confident and comfortable to be able to express ideas and opinions and thoughts, and have that be received in a very positive frame. But I think about the broader ecosystem, beyond just kind of the brick and mortar or the internal workings of an organization, that ideas come from competition, ideas come from other industries. Ideas come from kids. I think about the years of coaching youth sports and the things that the kids in on the teams would do or say, or how they would talk about how they could improve a play, or if we did this differently, or if we communicated in this way. You can really get inspired in so many different ways. Ideas
Mm-hmm.
can come out of conflict. So I say that meaning when we think about maybe on a global scale, when there's conflict between countries, ideas can populate. It's really just an ever flowing river
Mm-hmm.
of sources that ideas can generate from.
Yes, I agree. And I think that there's always in situations opportunities and obstacles that lead to that. And it's people who are then like, who really feel passionate about either taking advantage of an opportunity or dealing with an obstacle. Maybe because sometimes they're forced to,
Hmm.
but then that's when people get
Great.
inspired. What?
I said, that sounds great.
Well, I mean, there are well, you brought up like conflict in like
Hmm.
countries, right?
Right.
And you're put in situations, you know, where you may be in the middle of something and you don't directly have a way to do anything about it. And so you create ideas, you create different ways of managing those situations. I think when you watch Shark Tank, you hear a lot of times about entrepreneurs who come up with these great ideas. And a lot of times it's under some level of pressure that they were exposed to that then caused that idea to be created. So or you know, sometimes we look in our refrigerator and we're like, there's like not much to make, and then we make some of the most creative dishes because great ideas, right?
It does happen. Yeah. One thing I would add to build on, just because you kind of went in a little bit of um, an added pathway, is that, when it comes to conflict or change or things that pop up, there's three circles of which you evaluate as an individual. And so the core of the circle is, do I have direct control over this? Can I do something to change the current situation or change the outcome? Great. Put your energy there. The next circle around it is, can I influence? Can I make a change by influencing the situation, influencing people who might be decision makers, but can I put energy towards something that could potentially have a better outcome for me? And then the third circle around it is I have no control, I have no influence. And so I have to figure out how to let it go, and then how to be at peace with the fact that I can't control that. I can't control countries at conflict. I can't control, other things that are beyond my reach. And so what do you do with that energy? And maybe there could be backdoor approaches. Maybe you could get involved or put energy towards something that can have a ripple effect. And that can feel really good, that you're contributing in a way that you still have, a hold of the reins, so to speak, that in some way I'm shaping a reality that's important to me. But it's also important to recognize that don't overexhaust yourself in those spaces if it's something you truly need to let go of, and then really navigate how do I feel good about myself, knowing that there's really not much I can do about this.
No, those are good points. And the sphere of control piece, I think, is really important as a leader to understand, right? Because sometimes you have an opportunity to just simply say, okay, how can I show up for the people around me so that they understand that even though we may not have the type of impact at this point in time, we still can do something, right? We can ground ourselves in doing some meaningful work in a different space. I was on 494. There's always like construction in the summer, right? And I was going somewhere.
That's one of the major highways in Minnesota.
In Minnesota, yes. And it was one lane. And, I don't have any control, you're right, over being able to go out and tell construction crews, move so I can go.
Yeah.
Right? So, it's about replacing it then and understanding, okay, so I have to let go of that part. So what can I do now to, make myself feel as if I'm actually gaining value? So I could turn on a podcast where they were talking about leadership. And that adds to my ability to learn more in that space and time. So,
okay. Right. I think we've departed from the question that we responded to, so maybe we should.
That never happens.
Get back on track and go on to the next question.
Well, I was going to say that in relationship to what we were just talking about, what is one characteristic that you believe every leader should possess?
Integrity, hands down. I think people and companies are made or broken when integrity comes into question, isn't demonstrated, or those that have it and do not waver. They're committed through and through, and run a company that way. It helps build trust. It helps with communication. It allows people to be freed up in thought, because not second guessing what might be the motive behind this. I think it allows people to sleep. I would say I've been in environments where it's been very high integrity, and that was known and felt and experienced all the way through. And then I've been in environments where I would say integrity would come into question, and it doesn't take long for that to rifle through the organization and people to start questioning. And then it truly takes a village to help clean up where someone may have misstepped because it was unconscious or conscious. You never really know. But it might be framed up in a way. So to me, that's probably the biggest one that I would say leaders need to possess.
Okay.
How would you respond to that question?
Well, I believe there's several things that leaders need to possess.
You get to pick one.
I know. and you picked integrity already. So I'm gonna go in a different direction. Well,
Okay.
I could confirm it too, but then that would be kind of boring to me on the podcast. So therefore, I'm gonna pick something else, and I'm going to say that leaders need to be vulnerable. And by vulnerable, what I mean is I mean it kind of builds a little bit on the integrity piece, is that if you can show that you're comfortable when you make a mistake, or you departed from a principle and you did it and it didn't work quite the way you thought it was going to, and you share that, then you become more human. And sometimes leaders, I feel, want to sit in ivory towers and act like they never do anything wrong. And we're all people, and that means we're all fallible. So having some level of vulnerability, being able to share who you are and be authentic. I mean, maybe that's a better way to put it. Be authentic with
Those are
those.
different things.
Yeah, they could be, yes, but I
They
have
are.
lots of things I want to say, so therefore I have to throw other stuff in there as
But
well. But so yeah, so they're different. So you disagree with the fact that, I mean, I'm saying that when you are vulnerable and you start sharing yourself, that helps you be more authentic because you seem real to people, as opposed to um, you know seeming like you're untouchable, you don't make mistakes.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, absolutely. I was having a conversation with a leader in SVP this morning, and um, he started to share quite a bit about his personal life. And it wasn't necessarily part of what we were talking about, but it became part of the conversation. And, this kind of got at the point about being vulnerable. Like, one, to be vulnerable, there typically needs to be some degree of um, confidence, maybe, that who you're being vulnerable with, whether it's one or many, will receive and manage the information you're sharing with them appropriately. And also with being vulnerable, I would say to some degree, know your audience. And there's kind of a time and a place for that. And it can be a very powerful characteristic, I would say, for leaders to demonstrate vulnerability and help others understand what that really means and why a leader is being vulnerable in the moment. Because if it isn't necessarily recognized as, oh, this leader is being vulnerable in this moment, it could be maybe misinterpreted and then used as a harmful thing. So I just wanted to add in a couple more things in there that, it's not about just encountering anybody and now I'm just going to freely express some things that I care to share, because I want to be vulnerable. At least that's how I look at it. One, we have to treat what we're sharing with others appropriately, and then we also need to make sure that others are going to receive and manage it kind of with the care and respect that we would hope.
No, I agree with that totally.
You don't have to agree. I'm just.
But I do.
All right. Let's see. I think we had one more, right? Before we go into our speed round.
Yes.
Okay. So I hope I'm getting the right one. Is it the last question that we had? Okay. So what are you doing to ensure you continue to grow and develop as a leader?
Absolutely nothing.
Nice.
No.
How's that working for you?
No. Listening to podcasts, doing podcasts, talking to other people, reading, You know, being a being in environments where difficult topics are discussed, and you're able to look at those viewpoints that different people have. In the beginning, I talked about people can have different leadership styles. So understanding your leadership style, but also listening to other people's leadership styles, how they approach things, so that you have more in your toolkit that you can more, I should say, I have more in my toolkit to pull from and to leverage in the different circumstances. So I think it's just exposing myself to as much different variety as possible and looking for the opportunities where leadership shows up unexpectedly, like at a WNBA basketball game.
Okay.
I had no specific reference there, just simply
Okay.
saying that leadership can show up even at things like a WNBA basketball game. So.
Of course. Absolutely. Um, so I guess I would, build upon that and look at, how do I continue to kind of challenge myself and grow? Is that being involved in environments that I can contribute value and also receive value. And that might look differently from, being involved in a few different leadership groups or roundtables, or just organic networking, going to events, seminars. I tend to like more of the person exchange when I'm looking at, growing myself versus, reading something. I will read things, articles, and stay up to date and publications, etc. But then I want to be able to vet it and verify it and bring it into conversation to learn more beyond just kind of what's been brought to me. And then, by adding value, putting myself out there, maybe I write a short article and, publish that. It invites others to be able to add their perspective. And, I get to learn and grow through that and see different angles that maybe haven't considered before. Or maybe even things come back in a way that's challenging me to think differently or more broadly. So I look to things such as that. And, I also look at leaders that demonstrate maybe the characteristics or the values that I'm aspiring to continue to grow in, or things that I just really admire, and, look into, what do I want to say, fostering that so that I can continue to enhance my own leadership and then invite feedback. So I'm always curious to understand, what do you need from me? How can I further help? What more can I do? What could I do differently? How can I show up in a way that's supportive for you? So it's kind of inviting more, again, it's more the relationship side to my growth journey, I would say.
Okay. So we had an idea that we
We
were
did.
going to do like the speed round thing. So we've had a little discussion around some questions, but these next questions we're gonna ask each other is just like what pops in the head and like you can throw out there and
Pretty fast.
pretty fast, right?
Yeah.
So given that we were talking about growing and development as a leader, what are a few resources that you might recommend to somebody looking to gain insight into becoming a better leader?
Gosh, I mean, we just kind of came off of answering this question that there's a lot of resources that we just covered. You could listen to podcasts, read articles, you could go to conferences or seminars, get a mentor, get a coach, and get into conversation. put yourself out there, develop a network and relationship with people, get involved in groups where, it can meet you by way of providing more value to you, while you can also deliver value in different types of ways. You could study people, like I was saying before, that there's going to be leaders that you never meet, but there's characteristics or qualities about them that you really admire. And so dig into that. Understand, what does it take to do that, to be that, and how can I do that in a way that's authentic and true to myself?
Okay, I was just gonna simply say, you should push yourself outside your comfort zone. Do something that you haven't done, but you either considered doing or someone else told you you might try and do, and then pick your favorite form of education, whether that be watching a video or reading a book or listening to a speaker, and commit to doing something once a week like that. So those were the things I was going to bring
Okay. All right. That's fair. All right. So how about the next one? Can you explain an impact, if any, that AI has made on organizations or you personally?
up. Well, me personally, it's had a great impact because I'm learning to embrace it, but then also leverage it appropriately. Different organizations have had different, that I've been involved with, have had different feelings about AI, and it ranges from shut it down, don't want to deal with it, believe it's like the devil or whatever, all the way to, hey, you know what? Let's build superstructures around, creating new GPT personas and things like that. So, I think that the impact can be what you make it, and just make sure that you talked about integrity in leadership. If you have integrity in using AI, then it's going to be used appropriately. It's not going to be used maliciously. Let's put it that way.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a hope. But there are things and people out there that see opportunity within AI that might have a different viewpoint around what that looks like. And I would say that AI, it's here, and it is taking over quite a bit. And so, as individuals or organizations, if you're not stepping in and welcoming AI, you're going to get left behind. I think it's really important to understand it, recognize its usage, and how to leverage that for the goodness that it can provide. When I think about from an organization standpoint, what becomes concerning though is that when you're leveraging AI, that you're putting, potentially information that is coveted within your organization now out into the broad masses. And, the whole IP component of protection is concerning. And then when you think about if AI is turned on for employee use, do you have a discipline around how one should go about utilizing AI for the benefit of the business or the individual, but also protecting the business and protecting the individual? And that's true as an individual too. But I would just say get curious. And if you haven't started using AI yet, step out there, give it a try.
Yeah, another question.
Do I have another?
It's my
Ask
question.
that one. Yeah.
Yeah, what's one mistake you witness leaders making more frequently than others?
Stick to one. Not evolving. And I say that because the number of conversations I have with either people that I work with or people I coach, and might use the phrase, "That's just the way I am." Yeah, that's the way you again choose to be. And I know I've mentioned this before on our other episodes, is that leadership again isn't a destination. You don't arrive. Just because you have a certain title doesn't mean you're done. And so you have to continue to work on yourself to stay relevant in your leadership capacity, relevant for your company, your industry, but also for the people that you're leading and the people that you're serving. That would be my response. What would yours be?
Not challenging themselves on a regular basis.
Okay. Did you want to expand?
No.
No. Okay.
No,
Okay.
that was it.
All right. What is the biggest challenge facing leaders today?
Outside of the obvious, which
This might be different for a lot of people.
Culture. I would say there's a cultural divide, and no matter what organization you're in, if you don't think there's one, that's even a bigger issue for you as a leader. So identify it, right? It could come in so many different ways, and you need to be prepared for how for being able to handle it.
Mm-hmm. You do, yeah. I'm going to use a broad response, which is decision making, and decision making in the sense of there's the two kind of extremes that exist: those that are analysis paralysis and really can't get things going for the business, and then those that are maybe more risk taking and I've got enough information to get moving and get going. Both are vulnerable places to be, and it seems that because of the challenges that are being put forward for a lot of industries and organizations right now, decision making is becoming more challenging for leaders, which anyway, it's impacting more than themselves and their business. It's impacting like a huge ripple effect.
Okay, well, real quick, which is more important, you believe, in an organization: mission, core values, or vision?
Yes, but yes, I need to pick one. So I will pick mission. To me, that's the tip of the spear for helping to organize an entire company or solopreneur, that we're staying focused on exactly what is this business about? What are we doing today? And are we fulfilling that? It's something that's easy to articulate and help people recognize how is what I'm doing today or now, and even decision making, what should I be doing today and now? Does that roll up into supporting the mission? And again, whether you're a 100,000 employee organization or you are a solopreneur, I believe that having a mission statement to provide that direction, that tip of the spear, is really important. How would you answer the question?
I'm gonna go with core values when handled effectively. I believe core values really do help everyone, if we're aligned, make decisions in an organization, so that we don't have to have a handbook that tells you how to do every single thing. You just recognize, is this like in alignment with our values? And the only thing I would add to that is that when you have values, you also have to make sure there's shared understanding, which means you might need anchor statements or something like that to help people, live the values or understand the values so they can live into them. So.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, with any of these, there's strategy around it. Again, back to how we opened, that leadership is so layered and expansive. So with everything that, even as we're responding, there's a lot more depth and latitude that we could go into with all of it. But really wanted to provide some insight in some of these, top leadership questions that we get, and provide our perspective on it, at least as of today, because that's always evolving also. And so, really want to believe that providing more value to each and every one of you, our listeners and our viewers, on what are things that can stimulate and activate you to a higher level of leadership. And whether you're an aspiring leader or you're a very seasoned leader, the journey's not done. So stay with it and keep growing.
Yes, keep growing and keep going. And until next time, again, remember to watch us on, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and subscribe and like our show.
Like, follow, and share. Yes.
Like, follow, and share. I don't
all
have
those things.
Yep. All right. We'll talk to you soon.
All right.
And we're out.
Time. Bye.